Yes, sir. So, hello everyone. Welcome to today's second IDCSS session. And this is the last session of IDCSS 2025 series. We already covered a wonderful journey of IDCSS 2025 with our wonderful speakers. And we have one more wonderful speaker with us, Vasant Garimela, Senior Manager Tech GRC in Mashtech. And so we will be having 15 minutes at the end for Q&A. So we can continue now. Over to you, sir.
Yeah, thank you, Dipali. Good evening, all. Just give me a minute, and my apologies. Whenever we need to work, so obviously teams know that we have to delay things, so it did. And just give me a second. Yeah, thank you, Dipali. I'll just take over now. I hope the screen is visible. Can somebody please confirm?
Yes, sir, it is visible.
Thank you. Yeah. So, hello all. Very good evening. My name is Vasant Garmela, and I'm honored to address the participants of Indo-Dutch Cybersecurity School 2025 today on the behalf of DSCI. You all are here because you're the future of architects of digital trust. So our session, Beyond the Code, is what I just wanted to name because it focuses on the crucial framework that enables the safe, reliable innovation that is on governance, risk, and compliance. That's what we are going to discuss on today, right? Because it's an awareness session that I want to give it for the next generation of global tech leaders. That is you. So, just give me a second, guys. Yes. So, while I was in, when I started my journey in GRC, governance, risk, and compliance, there's a famous cybersecurity leader named Napo, where he says it takes 20 years to build a reputation, and a few minutes of cyber incident is just ruinous, right? I mean, you build your reputation, you do everything to ensure that things are going well, and suddenly one particular incident that really troubles everything, right? That's what this particular slide is all about. That made me more interesting to come into this field, right? Pretty slow it is. So, as I said, I'm Vasant Karmela. I'm certified in CISSP, CISA, CDPSE, CCSK, and CEH. My passion is helping students like you to bridge the gap between the pure technology and business ready solution. So today my goal is to demystify the GRC and show why it is one of the most important, critical, I can say the most critical and the hidden parts of the tech industry. Nobody discusses on GRC. People will speak. You might have gone through multiple sessions related to compliance, risk, information security awareness, IoT securities, and everything. But friends, end of the day, GRC is where everything is there. You come there and you will be understanding. So my promise is this will be, I'll try to make it pretty interesting, though I can see that a lot of you are youngsters and you the next entrepreneurs or you would be consultants, you would be coming into it. So let me try to, make it more mapping to your future career perspective as well, right? What do you care? Why we want to make GRC important? Say earlier back in 2015s and all, GRC was all about boring paperwork. That's what they had in their minds, right? It is for the managers. No, not at all. It's a massive job market now, right? If you look into tech GRCs or technology GRC, in other words, security, information security GRC or risk, these are extremely high demand jobs now these days. Wherever you go in the market, they look for these talents, right? This makes you a better builder. If you know your GRC, right, this helps you to build products, right, that are secure, that are stable, that are trusted from the start. The most important part anywhere in the organization is, as I said, reputation that comes from that builds the trust, right? So that's what the GRC helps in. Now, before we get into the importance of GRC, but we need to understand what would happen if the GRC strategy itself is weak, right? That's the important thing. We generally focus more on cost of failure, right? Any organization, they look for money, and the money is also kind of the cost. What we see is always a failure, right? The highlights what we are seeing here is operational and financial drag caused by a poor integrations, right? Generally, if you're not understanding the objective, what is the objective of my organization, the vision and the mission, it is always a failure that you see, right? A weak GRC will definitely lead to a functional silos, right? High duplication of work, efforts you have to keep, same thing multiple times, different teams would be doing it, right? These kind of things are literally waste the resources, right? That's what it is. There are a lot of potential legal. Let's say you have an application, every application will have an AMC, that is annual maintenance contract, or a legal perspective, right? And without understanding, people just buy applications, and they just waste money there. So that's where your GRC would come into the picture, and they will try to solve the issues, right? That's what governance risk is all about. Now, to make you guys understand in an easy manner, I'll try my best, as I promised, to make more interesting kind of a thing. I just want to give a different scenario. Let's take your, in the practical perspective, you're building a house, right? Definitely down the line, when you purchase a house or you want to build a house, there are certain things that you have to follow. I'll just try to map it against our GRC side, that is governance, risk, and compliance. When I say governance, here the governance meaning is my blueprint, right? In order to build a house, I need to have a blueprint, without which I just can't build something there. So I need to have a blueprint, and we need to have a coach for that, right? So this means I'm defining the design, the rules, and who approves the plan. If you want to if you have a land, you can't just build a building, right? Or you can't build a house as well. You need to have permissions. You need to have get approvals and all these things, right? That's what governance is. Now, risk is where you would see your insurance perspective, your security perspective, right? What if there is a fire? How could, people can escape from one door to another door? Or what if there is a break-in? What kind of smoke detectors or CCTV cameras or locks I need to have, right? That's what it is all about when I speak in terms of risk. When I speak in terms of compliance, the inspector, or let's say you build a building, everything went well, but somebody has to check the wiring, how the wiring has been done in your building. What if there is a short circuit, whether the main gets off, or what exactly happens, how the plumbing is done. All these things will be monitored, right? Somebody will come and they give a certification. That's what the compliance is all about, right? So this is, and in a house perspective is what I'm trying to map and explain you guys, right? Now, there are three pillars. You might have gone through the three pillars of information security, where it speaks about confidentiality, integrity, and availability, right? Similarly, in GRC, you have governance, risk, and compliance. You might think, what are these three pillars? In other words, governance simply, you people will understand, since you see how people drive vehicles, how they follow GPS, and also it is pretty easy for me to make you understand in that sense. Now, when I say governance, take for example a driver and your GPS. You're sitting on the wheel, you're driving it, you're ensuring, you're getting the, the direction. The GPS provides you the direction. You know your goal, how to, reach it, and who's in charge of taking these kind of decisions. Yeah, and that is you. The driver will take the charge. Okay, let me drive through this way. It will be much easier to reach. This is more safer, and everything will be taken care of by the driver. That's how the governance is. Risk. Risk is simply, let's take it as, okay, when we are going in the car, definitely, we should be certain areas have to be careful, ensure that your brakes are proper, you're ensuring your car has been serviced regularly, ensure, in order to, if there is any crash, you're wearing your seat belts, all these things, right? That's what risk perspective. So what you would see here is brakes and seat belts, right? It identifies what could go wrong at a crash and put controls in that to keep you safe. If I'm wearing my seat belts, properly, I'm safe, right? At least I'm safe, I can say. Compliance is straightforward. Rules of the road, follow the rules of the road, ensuring that, you're following the laws. That means your speed limits. So tomorrow, if somebody catches you, you can say that, boss, I have not crossed my speed limit. I'm just going on that. That's what it is. Compliance, right? Now, let's understand the difference between technology GRC and security GRC. That's what, in the beginning I said, I want the next coming leaders, you, to understand what GRC is, technology and security GRC in the career perspective, right? Technology GRC on the broader level, if you see, it's a parent category, right? It's a pure parent category. This is applied for your software development lifecycle, your infrastructure and operations perspective, your ITIL management perspective. ITIL here is you might have gone through your change management, incidents, configuration. These things comes under your ITIL side, right? That's what on a technology GRC perspective on a broader level is what you see. Now, if you look at the subset of it, right, the subset of it is your security GRC. It's a critical subset, I can say. It focuses specifically towards protecting your information and digital assets, right? Like your data privacy, access controls, threat, and I will also look into a perspective of access controls, incident response, and threat vulnerability management and all, right? You have gone through in your previous sessions, you might have gone through so-called the sessions of ISO 27001, or you might have gone through the IoT or the information security perspective, right? So all these things come under your security GRC side, right? The golden triangle. I just want to take you through the golden triangle. See, when we are saying governance, risk, and compliance, you may feel that these are three different words, but how these are interdependent with each other, right? That's the important point. Now, you see, Vasant is from GRC. When I say GRC, okay, Vasant, how are you able to handle these three different verticals into one subject? Right? That question will always be there for anyone. That's where our experience will come, right? Now, as a GRC, what we would do is, I'll take a practical example of password policy. Earlier, the password policy was like 8 characters or minimum 8 characters. What that was a requirement, right? Now, if I have my 8 characters with only the alphabets and numbers, then for the hacker to break that, it would take hardly 4 to 5 minutes, not more than that, with the latest technologies, if you see. Similarly, if I take with 8 character length and I put, all special characters, uppercase, lowercase, alphabets, numbers, it would take hardly another, I can say, like 6 to 7 hours, right? With the latest technologies and all. But if I put more than 12 characters, right, with strong, password characters, we're ensuring that, special characters are there, uppercase, lowercase, numbers, alphabets, and everything is there in that. And also ensure that every 90 days we are changing, and also ensure that the past history of 21 passwords can't be used. So that's how strong the password can be. But who would tell this? It is the governance. He sets the policy. He would say, okay, this is what my password policy should be, right? What would be the risk? The risk would be, as a risk, I would identify, okay, let's say most of you people have access to your Gmail accounts or to your or your Facebook, Insta. Do you want it to be a simple password so that others can easily access? Let's say, okay, Vasant was born in so and so date, so I'll put, okay, Vasant at the rate one, so and so date. So it is easy for you to access, right? You can just get into my name. You can just, Google has everything everywhere. Your digital footprint, what we call is digital footprint. We all have one bad habit of writing about ourselves. We'll feel proud about it, but end of the day, it is not you who is proud. It is the hacker who will be very much proud of it, right? Because he would take your data, he will play around with it, right? Similarly, the passwords should always have different meaning, not your name, your dog's name, or your friend's name. No, that doesn't work. You need to ensure that it is quite different, right? So the risk is always the weaker the password, your accounts can be taken over and the data breach can happen. I will not get into the what is data breach and account takeovers because you have already gone through all these things in the previous sessions. Now, who would come and look into it? Okay, Vasant from governance, he has said, okay, password policies has been set. The risk was, weaker passwords. But who would come and check that? Somebody has to come out and say, okay, everything is fine, right? Because there would be days when people, from governance will come and tell to an application owner, do this, do that. One day he will listen, 2 days he will listen, third day he'll say, okay, fine, I'll do it. But he will never does. He will forget. He may forget, right? Because he has a lot of other things to do. But who would come in picture and see to it that, they are implementing it, whatever the governance team is coming and telling them? It is the audits. Audits will ensure that, the policies are being enforced and it has been followed by everyone, right? That's what the compliance is all about. So this is the golden triangle, which, has interdependencies with one another. Till now, you have gone through governance, risk and compliance, all different three perspectives I spoke, but this is how the interdependencies are being created, right? Now, let's understand the governance. Part one, like a movie, let's take it as a movie, part one, right? Setting the rules of the game. Now, most of you guys might have played soccer or any other game. Let's take soccer or a football, right? Based on your region's language. Now, when I say the game of football, okay, you can't play simply directly, right? You need to have set of rules, or else you will be end up seeing that all 10 players will be sitting in the bench because some of the other guy will come and break their legs, right? So that is the reason there are rules being set there. There are something called foul, there's something called yellow card, red card, right? Two yellow cards and then automatically a red card. That's a rule there. That's what governance is. It sets the rule of the game, right? Now, understanding the purpose of this governance, that's a pretty important part. We need to understand what exactly governance is all about, right? See, it is about the accountability. Okay. It is about the accountability structure. Governance defines who has authority and establishes ethics, right? It establishes the ethics, it establishes the resources, it establishes the accountability. That's what it does. It must maintain the balance between the stakeholders' interest and the employees who work properly, right? That's what the governance is. It ensures that the accountability has been set. Okay. In other words, I can say that kind of a good governance that actually balances. In other words, I can say a good governance which actually balances the interest. It maintains the control and also it empowers the employers to work correctly. That's what it is. Governance is all about. In governance, you will definitely hear a lot of policies, standard, and procedures. Even in, if I'm not wrong, in yesterday's session, you might have gone through ISMS, ISO 27001, where you might have heard about the words like policy, standard, and procedures. I just want to give, make you understand what exactly the meaning of policy and, what is a procedure and what is a standard, right? The policy is like what and why. It's kind of a enforcement, right? What and why it says. On a higher level statement, it will say, we will protect all customer data, right? That's what my policy speaks, right? I will say that, okay, we will protect all customers' data. Now, standard says how, right? How would you protect it? Somebody has to tell how can I protect it? I can say many things, right? Okay, Vasant will protect the data, but how will I do that? There must be a process for it. There must be a standard being defined for it. I will say that all data must be protected using encryption, and that data has to be encrypted with AES 256, right? That is advanced encryption systems that I'll take and ensure that, it has been encrypted, right? That's the specific rule I'll take. Standard is based on the best standard practices, what we say, right? How I'll take the best practices in the globe and the what you say. In other words, even the cost also will see in that. How much would it cost for me to implement? According to that, I'll take the best that suits to my organization as per my business requirement. I'll take that standard, right? That's what it is. Then based on that, and I've taken a basic example. I'll take customer. I'll protect my customers' data. That is what my policy says. But how to protect it is what my standard says. Standard is purely based on the ISO 27001, NIST. We'll go through that as well in later stages. And based on that, I'll take, okay, encryption AE256 is the best as of now. So I'll say in my standard, this is what you have to follow. But okay, I have to follow. But how to implement it, right? There would be certain steps, right? That's what we call procedures are nothing but your step-by-step guide, right? Even you in your in your programming, wherever especially in database perspective, you have store procedures, or else in your programming as well, you'll keep on hearing procedure, procedure, procedure. Procedure is what? It is a step, right? Step by step, you will see it's kind of a guide, right? In procedure, we will say that, okay, now you have seen that in policy perspective, I have said we will protect the data. In standard, I have said, okay, I will use AES 256. I'll encrypt all the data with this. But in my procedure, it says I will how to deploy a database with this kind of encryption enabled. That's what the procedure is, right? So this is the hierarchy of the governance, which talks about policy, standard, and procedure. I hope you guys have noted it down and understood what exactly it is, right? Because in future, when you come into the reality of the world, on the corporate world, or you become an entrepreneur, you have to understand these basics, right? Now, in practice, if you see in an AI policy perspective, since artificial intelligence is everywhere, so I just brought that as an example as well in the governance practice, right? New technologies need proactive governance because AI is there. If people are not using it, if there is no proper policy in place, definitely, you would use it in a wrong manner, right? Obviously, there's something called shadow AI as well. If shadow AI is in place, it's pretty difficult to manage it. So in order to put a check for that, we have governance in place, right? There are certain controls that you have to use. There are certain agreements that a person has to follow, right? So this is how it is. The direction is leadership decides the company whether to use AI or not. If it is using AI, what kind of AI? Whether we have to go with enterprise or what exactly it is what it is. How safely we can use it is what it does. That's a direction you would get. Similarly, in policy, it says acceptable AI use. There's a policy that we write where we write about, no company confidential code will go into public AIs, right? Let's say there is a you have been using ChatGPT and there's no proper control and you guys just upload some documents unnecessarily. It would affect the organization, right? In order to put check there, these policies would come into the picture and that will help to protect the company's data and as well as it protects you as well, one or the other way, right? There is an authority. Generally, every company where the AI is there, they would definitely have AI review committees there that creates and approves new tools, right? Obviously, let's say person is doing some work, a day-to-day work, right? I myself, I've been a programmer, right? So I'm always a kind of a lazy guy. And if it's a daily activity, I'll see it once and twice. I try to understand the logic. If I get the logic, immediately I'll write a program on that. I make it an automate. Now, since AI is there, there's something called AI agents. I'll ensure that agent is working for me. It should not be the other way around, right? I will write an AI agent. I will ensure that that is working properly. I'll monitor it for a week and then I'll move on. But what if the agent itself is written in a wrong manner and goes for a toss, right? So for that, they have to be committees. Somebody has to monitor these things, right? That's what it is. For that, you need to also ensure that accountability is in place. Tomorrow, Vasanthas wrote a agent and it has been running around the globe, organization and caused a trouble. Now, who will be responsible? Someone has to take the responsibility, right? The person who wrote and who has approved it would be accountable here. That's where their legal and security teams must review. They always review all these documents. Accountability is not about the review as well. It is about to ensure that the person who is running the show must be, uh, you know, uh, like I can say responsible for it as well. If something goes wrong, we have to point it at him. That it's his thing. He has to handle it. That's what accountability is all about. Now, who's responsible? Now, guys, when you move towards the organization or when you have your own organization, you would see a operational risk model. Okay, there is something called organizational risk model. Sorry, right? Now, every organization, if you look into their risk model, you have three lines of defense, right? If you are into the world of information security, risk, or audit and compliance, you must be aware about these three line of defenses, right? Line of defense one, that's you, that is business and IT teams. You own and manage the risk as part of your daily job, right? That's what it is. First line of defense is purely operationals, and these guys, they own the risk. Second line of defense is quite a tricky one where it is GRC and the risk teams. They set the policies, right? They kind of oversee and advise the first line. They will say, boss, these are the rules that you have to set because we have been seeing that you are running. Let's say there is a password policy. There is a password policy, right? And but it has not been implemented. And application administrator is sitting in the LOD1 because he's an IT guy. IT guy, they are not bothered about risk. They are bothered to ensure that the things are running smooth. End of the day, business has to run smooth. That's what it is, right? I don't want to put stop. What if I'm not being monitored? What if admin guy is not being monitored? His application administration password and ID will be admin. You can say thank you to the organization itself, right? You can't have that. Somebody has to monitor it. Somebody has to keep something there. That's where GRC policies would come into the picture, right? That's where line of defense 2 will come and they set rules and policies. That's what they do, line of defense 2. Coming to line of defense 3, this is kind of, I can say, the last man standing there. That's the, your audit department. They provide independent assurance to the board. They don't report to CEO. They don't report to any of the, the any of the management team. They report to board of the directors directly. That's what they do. Internal audit, they provide the independent assurance to the board. That's what they do, right? Now, coming to my favorite topic, that is risk, right? Deepali, can you just confirm me, am I audible to all?
Yes, sir, you are audible.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. So coming to risk, this is where most of you guys would enjoy working down the line, right? Because you will be always on the line of fire, and it ensures that you're running every day. That's what risk is all about, right? Finding and fixing what could go wrong. That's what risk. And let's understand in depth what it says. What is risk? I mean, I think yesterday you might have gone through the in the ISMS. Sorry about that. In the ISMS training, you might have heard about the word risk a lot, right? Generally, you see if it is risk is equal to always there's a formula, threat into vulnerability into impact, right? In other words, I can put for any potential threat, that can exploit a vulnerability, right? Any potential threat that can exploit a vulnerability is risk, which could cause impact to the organization, right? Please write it down, or just has a note you can keep. The definition of risk is any potential threat, okay, that can exploit a weakness which could impact our organization or which could go for a loss is what is risk is, right? You can see there is a formula for that. Risk is equal to your threat into vulnerability into impact. Threat is an actor. It can be a hacker, it can be a flood, it can be an employer's mistake. That's we call it as insider's threat sometimes. Unknowingly, let's say tomorrow you have received, it's your birthday and you have updated something in your Facebook that you love iPhone 17 and all. And as a hacker, I will be sending you an email stating that, okay, happy birthday, brother. And, this is what it is. And we are happy that you came to so and so mall and you have, based on the bill number, you have won iPhone 17. Just click on the link and it will take you through that. Once you click on the link, that's it, gone. You can say thank you to your application, right? That's how it is. That's what it is. Yeah? That's how the attacker works. And even if you're not being trained properly on the security perspective, these are the things that could happen, right? Vulnerability means weakness, right? Unpatched software, if you're not patching your system on regular basis, definitely all the bugs and the security things will be there and people can, easily come in. Weak passwords, we discussed weak passwords a lot, in our risk perspective, weak passwords play a vital role. That's the reason we need to have a strong passwords. Impact the cost. Under the cost, you can see either a data breach, fine, or a reputational loss. That's what in the first slide itself we have discussed in the quote. You may have 20 years, it would have taken 20 years to build a reputation of your organization names, right? One cybersecurity incident takes everything out. That's what the reputation is, right? They have to, that's the risk. Yeah, we always have to be on our toes running, right? Let's understand about threats. What exactly the threats are? They aren't just a hackers, wearing a hoodies and what you see in the movies like Mr. Robot or in your other movies, right? Where you see persons wearing hoodies and trying to hack into things, right? That's not it. You can see external ones, they're organized crime, state-sponsored hackers, and script kidders. Internal ones, malicious, sometimes, they try to steal the data, move out. Internal accidents, right? As I said, employer who clicks on phishing links or misconfigure a server. Sometimes we try to, we think that we have configured a server, but in fact, we have not properly done it, right? Environmental perspective, you see, obviously you can't stop the environment. Sometimes there might be earthquakes, sometimes there might be power outages, sometimes there might be floods, fire, you never knew, right? These are the environmental perspective. These are the threats. Now, vulnerabilities. This is pretty important for you guys as well. These are the bugs, right? In GRC terms, we always look for in code. If you see, let's say you're writing a code, you guys are developers, or if you're working in security perspective, if you're coming into that career, definitely in the codes, you always look for SQL injections, cross-site scriptings, or missing input validations, and even in your dependencies using an old vulnerable version library like log4j. People do have earlier this habit while writing the program, instead of writing their own, looking for the official or licensed libraries, people just go into the websites, download unnecessarily libraries and bring into the production, right? You never knew what kind of libraries are there, right? And so that's what dependencies is what about. In your configurations, this used to be a pretty famous one. People, they just give direct hard-coded information, right? API keys and all directly into the programming. Weak passwords, as I said, admin, direct password, or don't enter anything kind of a thing. There was no control in it, no checks. That's what it is. In your systems, operating systems hasn't been patched for 6 months, right? If you look into your laptops, definitely you would be seeing a red button keep on coming in the taskbar stating that, boss, please update me once in a while. But we have a habit, either we don't switch off our systems or we say, okay, let's postpone it for the next day, right? So we never knew what would be the next day. So always patch your system on time, right? Now let's understand risk management lifecycle. So risk management lifecycle is all about your identifying, then assessing, then understanding your threat and monitor it, right? Now, when I say identify, that is our potential risk. How our server room could flood, how it can happen. I have to futuristically think in all these perspectives, right? And then assess accordingly, right? How likely it would be, how bad it could go, right? And then that's what the example is like: low likelihood but critical impact, right? Let's say in Hyderabad, earthquake happens like once in Hyderabad, India, earthquake happens once in 10 years or 20 years, right? The likelihood means number of times, right? That's what it is. It is very low, but impact can be high, right? We never knew. That's how we need to assess things, right? Threat, what can we do if there is a flood in the in a server room? Definitely you would try to move your flood, your servers into, let's say you have a on-premises data, and what you would do, you would think, okay, instead of having this, let me put it in my cloud, right? Let's put my application in cloud so that nothing would happen. Because in cloud, once it goes, obviously cloud is nothing but another bare metal sitting somewhere in other data centers. So the data centers are connected across the, it might be globe or within the country itself, right? Because generally now there is something called data localization. It ensures that the every country data sitting in their own area itself. That's what it is. So obviously, once it is in cloud, and it is available in any state or any other place within that boundary region, right? That's what it is. That's how I think. Okay, it would be better if I move that system there. How would I monitor? I would ensure that once it is done, okay, I would just I would add it into my risk register stating that this is what it is, this is what I've done, A, B, C, E, F, G, done, checkpoints. But I can't, once it is done, I can't simply sit and say everything is done. No, my job is to ensure what could be the next new risk that can come and how could I fix it. That's what, the risk management life cycle it plays. In a simpler manner is what I have just explained, but it's a lot bigger thing. There's something called heat map, right? Whenever I try to understand, whenever I try to do an assessment, there is a heat map that I always create, right? As I said, if there is a low likelihood once in a time it happens, even if it happens, nothing would happen, I would accept it. Okay, it's okay. I can handle that risk, right? High likelihood and low impact. Every time it happens, but there is less impact, I can manage it, right? Every time it happens and every big impacts are there, then I have to mitigate it. And I have to, if possible, after doing all the controls, I have to just monitor it, right? Or avoid it. That's what I can do. Because if my risk, let's say, is of $100, right? And the impact is like it is $100. Okay. And cost of implementing the particular application or the control, anything I'm putting there, purchasing new firewall or anything, and the cost is going about around $1,000, which is better to leave it or to add it, right? That's how we have to think in risk perspective. Now, how do we treat a risk? Treating a risk has four choices, right? One, avoid, stop the risky activity, right? You do collect a lot of data and then something happens, you have to end up paying fine to European region, that is GDPR, that will ensure that you're paying the fines. Instead of paying that fine, I would ensure that I'm not carrying your data itself, right? I will not collect your sensitive data. Boss, you keep it with you. I don't want that. I have avoided it, right? Certain areas, how to mitigate the risk. So sometimes, you would just add a encryption, right? You will not, let's say in an earlier slide, you remember, right? We discussed about policy, standard, and procedure where we discussed about, we will say we protect the customer data. And then we said that there's a standard. How do we protect it? By adding a encryption. So here also to mitigate, I would say I'm adding a encryption, right? That's the most common thing that people do. Then you would transfer the risk. There would be certain areas where a lot of cyber insurances are there now, right? Cyber attacks are happening and you can't handle that amount. So obviously paying fines and all, it is pretty difficult for you. You would pay a certain premium to the insurance people. They will take cover. They will cover your financial cost and everything, right? That's what it is. Accept. As I said, do nothing. If you think that the risk is, the cost of my control in the sense, let's say there's there is a risk. If there's a risk of cost $100, and if I implement something which is costing more than $1,000, what I would do as a business guy, I would say, okay, I'll accept the risk, let it go. That's it. I'm okay to lose $100 than putting $1,000 on that, right? That's what it is. Now, why does the risk management matters? See, in GRC world, since you guys are already there in securities and other things, right? You should understand that a survival, it's all about survival, right? In previous year, like more than what I've gave is just a bare minimum amount, like $4.88 million, but it is actually more than that, right? A good GRC isn't an expensive. Having a good governance, risk, and compliance is not an expensive thing. It's an investment, I can say, in other words. That definitely saves your money, reputation, and customer trust. It's always about trust is that creates the company, the brand, Tomorrow, when you guys become entrepreneurs, when you come into the world, when you come into the areas of in the consultancies and everything, the first thing always ensure is that you're creating that trust. How that comes with the knowledge. Knowledge is always help you to define that, right? And that's how you build your money and then reputation. Everything falls in one by one. Everything comes into the place, right? That's what it is. Now, I've been saying a lot about control, control, control. No, that's a key vocabulary that you need to always understand. When we say control, it is the policy, process, or the technology that you implement to mitigate that particular risk. Risk is something, what if, but the control is something, so we did this. I would say, okay, I have a weak password. That's my risk is. My control says if you have a risk which is very weak, I will say, okay, have a control. You ensure that your 12, password of 12 digit length, you're implementing it. That's the control. Control is something that will implement to mitigate the risk. That's what it is. Example, you can say in technology perspective, in technical controls, when you speak, I would say firewall, encryption, multi-factor authentication. That's the technical control. When I speak in administrative controls, admin side, right? You have security awareness training, background checks. Say I can't hire a person directly, right? If I'm hiring a person into my organization, I will do 10 checks on him. Background checks we call. I'll call his old, I'll reach out to his university. I'll see whether the degrees are right or wrong. Then I'll reach out to his previous companies. I'll see whether it is right or wrong, whether he has worked on these areas or not. How was his employer's perspective, behavior, everything XYZ, everything is an administrative control, right? That's what it is. Then comes your physical control. How would I, how is the security camera? How's the fence? Even for the fence perspective, if you go around the buildings, you would see different kinds of wall. Even for the wall, there is a rule, policies are written for the entire perimeters, what we call, right? Every perimeter will have its own kind of a rule. The gates, the locks, everything has a rule. That's everything is under the GRC perspective only it comes, right? If you visit any data centers nearby, you will see the data center building itself is very different. If you visit a normal organization, the gates are very different, the walls are different, right? You will understand that there are certain physical securities are built in inbuilt, right? Now, what is this integration model? There is something called open compliance and ethic group, right? This model provides holistic approach on open source approach to GRC. It ensures that not just three solid functions are there. It integrates with governance risk audits, with IT into a single view, right? Because governance earlier it was different. Your risk was different, compliance was different, but they brought it into one, right? Everything was into one, so everyone can have a direct view. That's what it was all about, right? Sorry, guys, I'm trying to run because I think I have just another 10 minutes, so I'll try to wrap it up, right? In deep dive, if you see, you can understand the learn, align, perform, review. We generally call this as LAPR cycle, right? LAPR cycle will tell you about how to understand the context, internal and external, about the culture part, how the culture of the organization is and what exactly is happening. All these things come here, right? And then you speak about about the stakeholders to define what exactly my objective is, right? And then I align. Align is about strategies and objectives, right? It ensures the strategies are aligning with my objective. If I found I need to ensure that I understand my context, and then I need to align accordingly with it. Ensure that my strategies are aligned with the objectives. I need to address my opportunity values and threats as well, and then I need to perform. That's where I need to execute my controls, right? Where I execute my actions. Actions are by controls, policies, and education that encourages the desirable behavior, and that will help to remediate the undesirable ones, right? That's what the performance is all about, right? Then comes the review part. I will evaluate, right? Review is, in a simpler terms, I'll put review is about your monitor and your assurance part, right? You would monitor and you would give your assurance. That's what review is all about, right? Coming to the compliance, part three, the final part, that is following the rules. You have understood that setting the games, rule properly. Then second one, you will try to find the risk try to things, you'll try to futuristically think what things are going wrong in the design perspective, in the process perspective, or what may come. So that was your part two. The part three is following the rules. You are trying to prove it, whatever you're doing is right. And it is as per the rules and the regulations being established by the organization and as well as by the laws, right? Your local law or the government, in other words. Now, compliance is an act of adhering to and demonstrating adherence to. There are set of rules, right? There are set of rules. That's what the compliance is all about, right? There are two major types, I can say. One is external compliance, another one is your internal compliance. As I said, when I speak about external part, it is my local, local law, I can say. The government, they set the laws, right? They have regulations like you have PCIDSS, that is Payment Card Industry Data Security Standards. You have GDPR, you have HIPAA, and other things. Based on your industry, every industry will have its own regulation. Let's say I'm from bank. Bank has, bank do need to have follow the local banking regulation, right? Every country has its own. Let's take in India itself. India has something called Reserve Bank of India. Reserve Bank of India is a regulation. It sets the tone that all other banks have to follow. Non-compliance here means fine or legal action. Now, if European Union perspective, if you see, they have something called GDPR. Now, if somebody has done something wrong and as per the GDPR, they have to pay the fine, that's what legal actions will be taken. If you're not following the controls and if you're not following the rules of GDPR, if something goes wrong, then definitely that company would end up paying, be that fines or they would face a legal action, right? That's what external is all about. Coming to your internal compliances, it is your own company policies and internal controls. Everything, whatever we discussed earlier on policies, governance, and everything, that's what it is, right? Now, the alphabetic soup of the global rules. This is what we were discussing about. I'll just take you through on a higher level. I'll try to close this. So there is something called GDPR, which speaks about the world's toughest data privacy. That's true because I worked on it. I do understand it's a pretty tough one. And then you have CCPA or CPRA, that is California gives consumers California control over the personal data. US, in US, it is like 50 states. So every state has its own rule. And once you're in compliance world, you will understand that later on. But in US is quite different because US follow 50, there 50 states have 50 different rules and everything is similar almost, but they play a different game. And one of the famous, in the data privacy part is your CCPA is what we have seen. That's the reason I brought it here. Then comes your HIPAA. HIPAA is all about your health insurance perspective side. They would take care. It's a very strict law on the patient's health. And in order to protect the patient's health, the HIPAA came into the picture. Even all across the globe, most of the life sciences, I can say, not life sciences, in the hospital perspective, in the health region perspective, they follow this, right? To protect the patient's health. I don't want my health to be on the public domain. No, I don't like that. So obviously someone has to protect it. So it is HIPAA who would take care of it. PCI DSS, as I said, it is about the credit card data, how they protect it. You don't want your credit card data to be available in the public domain, right? You don't want it to be with your merchant where you go and do shopping. And do you want your card data to be with him? No, definitely not. It should be with you. So that's how the PCI DSS would come into the picture and it would help you out, right? Then comes your audit. On audit, as I said, it's an independent assurance that you would give to your management. There are certain things. The goal is pretty simple: provide an independent and objective opinion on whether the controls are working as you said. As the GRC or LOD2 will say, follow these rules 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. These are the compliances that you have to follow. These are the regulatory things that you follow. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That's where the LOD3, line of defense 3, would come and say, okay, everything is fine. They would give their own opinions. They will say, okay, you're missing this, you're missing that, and accordingly, the report would go. So there are two kinds of audits here again. Actually, three, but I've kept it as two because I don't want to take your time as well. One is internal audit, another one is external audit. Internal audit is your company's line of defense 3. They would come, they would check how you're preparing things and everything is going well or not. External audit is something that companies from Big Four or somebody, they would come, they would perform an official audit. They give you a certification, right? They would say, okay, this particular company, XYZ company, has been certified for ISO 27001 or Systems Organization Control Type 2, that is your SOC 2. And they accordingly, based on the requirement of that particular organization and its industry's requirement, the external auditor, it might be a Big Four, it might be someone else who has the license and authority to perform the audits, he would come and do that, right? And they would give a certification for that. Core GRC principle. Guys, do remember this. Compliance is not security, right? You can be 100% compliant, but still you can be 100% insecure one or the other way. I would say, okay, I have everything in place, but you never showed whether on a higher place, on a higher level, you'll say everything is fine. But if I start digging into things, that's where I'll see, okay, you're facing a lot of design gaps, process gaps are there. That's what it is, right? Compliance is not security. You can be 100%, but still 100% insecure as well at the same time, right? That's the thing. Compliance framework, as I said earlier, there is something called NIST that is US based. It's free of cost, guys. Just go get into NIST CSF. Just type that in Google. You will just get a lot of documents. I suggest you start reading the documents so that that will give you on a higher level what exactly all these are about, right? So it's a repeatable process of managing the improving the cybersecurity. Identify, protect, detect, respond. These are the, I can say the 5 major components where your NIST is built upon, because these are pretty easy ones. Identify, protect, detect, respond, recover, right? That's what it is. It focuses on mostly on how to structure, manage a cyber risk. That's what the NIST does. Value is it's more flexible. It's a common language for internal, external, for the cyber risk. It is pretty easy to understand and do it. Whereas ISO, that is International Standard Organization, International Organization for Standardization. Sorry, that's what ISO is. It's pretty confusing always, right? It provides a guidance, right? It provides a global guidance and document approach on how to, leverage the security and risk. That's what they do. For example, ISO 27001, it speaks about information security management system. It's a certifiable part. It says, okay, you are certified, you have followed all these clauses, and you have done XYZ, and you have followed all the controls, 19, all the proper 99 controls. It was earlier 114, they have brought it to 140, right? Now, earlier it was 114, they brought it to 99 now, if I'm not wrong. So all these controls have been properly been agreed. There is a, everything is good. I'm certifying you, you're certified, right? Now, ISO even have something called guidelines. Now, ISO 31000 speaks about the risk management guidelines. So most of the companies do follow ISO 31000. They also follow the respective, their own, based on industries. Every industry has its own risk management part, right? They follow that policies. Then you have COSO and COBIT, right? These are another organization perspective, holistic view of risk. They follow their own risk management. It integrates with risk management best practices over the governance and compliance objectives. COBIT is again related to your ISACA part, that is your control objective of information systems and relatable technology framework. It focuses on more on IT governance and management, right? I can say, in other words, it provides the GRC on IT governance perspective, overall strategic, but not the compliance and all. It speaks on governance part mostly, but it's a good to read. If you guys get an opportunity, do read these things. GRC in the real world. I just have another minute. I'll try to wrap it up. Equifax breach. It's a public, since that's the reason I brought it here. Classic GRC failure that led to expose of the data of so many million peoples. The thing is, there were no proper, there was a vulnerability in the web application framework. Still, they haven't patched the system, right? They failed to patch it, hence this issue, right? The governance part, there was unclear ownership and accountability. Who was responsible for patching that specific server? Nobody was there. So that kind of thing. That's what, you know, compliance and internals can also fail to find this vulnerability. You do have vulnerability assessments. If it was being performed well, then this would not come up, right? Aftermath, you can see how much the fine they have paid. Massive jobs. And people with CEO, CIO, CISO, they lost their jobs. Obviously, Once you lose things, or the top management will always lose many things, right? Similarly, for Apple perspective as well, there were a couple of things that happened. Privacy by design was a big failure there, and that happened in a long time back. They brought the controls and everything later on, right? So lessons from the case studies, GRC is a protect, it's a proactive shield. It is not reactive, right? It is something that, okay, let it happen, then we'll see. No, it doesn't work like that. It is reactive. It is proactive. Let us first try to identify the weaknesses and let's mitigate, and then we can see. That's what it is. Ensure that, we are not getting into disaster or anything. Same thing at the same level, if you see into the Apple perspective, it was a business enabler. They would ensure that the governance is aligned to the business goals, right? We need to ensure that we are aligning to our business goals. That's what it is. The roadblocks in the implementation challenges. Um, why do organizations struggle to have a good GRC? It is always a culture. You should always understand. You should also explain your senior management to understand, what exactly the GRC is. There are a lot of manual processes still that is going on. I do agree with it because we are still going with it. And a lot of human errors and these things are there. The cloud. The major problem, what I see in roadblock is every day there is a new technology coming up, right? When there's a new technology popping up, obviously you have to read a lot, you have to become master of it. So that's where we are seeing that, and we are working on it. Even now we have been working on quantum computing perspective, we have been working on AI perspective, right? So we are bringing the controls over that as well. Now, your career perspective, it's not just for the managers, it is your daily job as well, right? In secure coding perspective, you should understand what is OWASP 10. That is, do have a read what is exactly OWASP 10. Scans perspective, privacy by design. Anything that you guys are talking about, always ensure that privacy by design is there in place. Building a privacy controls in future from the start, not as an afterthought. Okay, let me do everything and then we can see. No, that doesn't work. You have to build from the start itself. That's how your privacy by design should be. That's what governance is. Forefront line, if you see enforcing the GRC policies, access control, always ensure that the least privilege principles kind of a thing you're following. This will give minimum access to it, people, right? Now, Vasan sitting here can't have access to the entire database of you. No, that doesn't work because I need to ensure that, people have access to what they need to. Patch management, ensure that your systems are being patched on time. Login when monitoring, ensure that audit trails are placed, right? If you see immediate future, AI governance, that's a hot topic that is going on, right? And from GRC part, you could be helpful, right? And cloud is also, there are people, GRC as a code is going on all these days. People want help here, right? Even for the quantum risk, as I said, there is a crypto apocalypse that's happening. Now, the thing is, with the quantum computing, people are able to break the encryptions. We never knew what new kind of encryptions are going to born. So that's what it is, right? Supply chain risk. This is a famous recent attack that happened on the SolarWinds. You guys, I suggest you guys read about it. How solar chain risk, how supply chain risk works. It is the weakest. If you secure your weakest vendor, then you're almost through, right? If ensure that third-party code or open source libraries, SaaS tools are not in place. All these controls are there on that. You can't have a third party which has not been audited. You can't have a code that you brought it from open source and you're using application of open source, right? Because you never knew who is there behind that screen, right? It might be a bad person as well. So always ensure that GRC will ensure that it is taking care of these things, like ensuring that there are proper licenses in place, there are proper risk being identified and all these things, right? Now, what this future means for you, what you would see, what would you learn is AI fluency is non-negotiable. Obviously, you must understand how AI works to govern it. That's what AI GRC will be a massive field down the line. A GRC as a code, GRC is no longer just a checklist. Okay, I have A, B, C. Okay, check, check, check. No, that doesn't work. It is not about writing. It is writing about the policies using Terraform, open policy agents, and you also ensure that enforce, right? You would enforce the compliance in the cloud. Security is foundational. Obviously, as a foundational, developer, you need to understand how my DevOps security operations work. It is 10 times more valuable than just the codes, right? You would be a translator as well. You would be the most valuable person who can speak in tech terms and as well as in the risk to the board. That's the GRC, that the bridge you would have, right? Your personal GRC, I can say governance, set the goals, set your goals always. What your career goals are, that is your policies are nothing but your habits. That would set everything for you. Risk, manage your risk. What are the risks? Don't use weak passwords, have a strong one. Compliance, follow the rules. Whatever the things, that your university and academic things are there, you follow that, right? That's what it is. Takeaways, GRC is governance, risk, and compliance. I'm just repeating like tape recorders. It's how behind a wall run the technology company. That's the main thing, that GRC runs the tech perspective mostly behind the scene, right? It is a framework that enables trust, security, and strategic alignment, and high GRC maturity is. GRC is everyone's responsibility and the organizational culture and its foundation. That's one of the things that we have discussed about. The future of GRC is in AI governance, GRC as a code, and quantum readiness. Even that is coming up a lot now. I can say it's a fantastic career path. That is happening because that bridges between the technology, business, and legal skills as well, right? Learning and giving a positive and a mature GRC culture continuously strengthen the decisions in making. Any questions, guys? Thank you for your time. My apologies. I have taken extra 5 minutes, if I'm not wrong, 7 minutes. Yeah. Any questions that you guys have?
Thank you so much for the session, sir. We will now take a few questions. So if you have any question, please drop it in a Q&A session. And you can also raise your hand and I will unmute you. Do anyone have any questions? Please let us know. Sir, I don't think there is any question from audience side, it seems.
Okay. I think all our students, so
yes, sir.
obviously I can understand that. Anyways, all all the best, and this is the future, and GRC is what I wanted to explain and give you a brief background about it. And definitely, if you're learning more on insecurities, compliance, and risk, then this is where you would be, reaching out. What's one piece of advice you would give someone new to GRC? That's a good question. Yes. The advice is, understand the basics of whatever you're studying, right? Always have a concept, a good concept, right? Just not what you have read, and try to understand it. That's what I would suggest, and that will help you to understand what exactly the GRC is. Let's say if it is risk perspective, understand the meaning of risk always. Get in depth of meaning of risk, then you will understand, right? That's what one advice I would give. Right. I think any further questions or anything?
I don't think so, sir. We
Yeah.
can conclude this session now. Thank you so much, sir, for the wonderful session.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Deepali.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much, sir. And tomorrow is the closing ceremony of this series, IDCSS 2025. And the link will be shared with you all soon. So please be there. Bye-bye. Thank you all.
Thank you all. Thank you all. Bye.